Does Houston fix this one?
Well, look, the chance of trading Chris Paul are slim to none. I never say never because we've seen crazy trades in the NBA, but it would probably have to be your problem for my problem. So John Wall for Chris Paul. I'm not trading Chris Paul for John Wall, as bad as Chris's contract is.
Yeah, his John Wall is worse.
Right. So if the him or me thing is true, then I'm picking James Harden all day, every day over Chris Paul. However, I do think Chris Paul is right to a large degree. They're not going to win being a one-man show. They have got to get more ball and player movement into that offense. You got Chris Paul playing like a two-guard. And Chris Paul, give him credit, he willingly made himself a role player, a shooting guard, a spot-up shooter to a large degree, to try to win a title. We went 2 years, it didn't work.
Right.
So now you got to switch. So just tweak the offense, change it. And Harden is capable of doing this. Remember, when he was in Oklahoma City, I know he was young, he hadn't become a superstar, but he was a versatile playmaker coming off that bench.
Right.
He has led this league in assists.
Right.
He did.
Right. And when he got to Houston before D'Antoni was there under Kevin McHale, and they did reach the conference finals, he didn't play like this. He didn't dominate the ball like this. So Harden is capable physically, skill-wise, of playing a different way. However, after 2 years of, now your name's mentioned with Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain, and some people calling you the greatest one-on-one player ever, mentally and ego-wise, can you adjust to getting more guys? This is what, when they need to sit him down, Daryl Morey and all those guys, Chris Paul, look, James, no one in the history of basketball has won a championship, an NBA championship, with a player averaging 35 or more points. No, when Jordan's 3 highest scoring seasons, they didn't win championships. So you can't do it with him averaging 35. He can average 30, but just a little tweak, let's get other guys involved. That's how they need to settle this, because you're not trading Chris Paul.
And James Harden say, see, I started this streak when Chris Paul got hurt. See how well we was doing? We was winning lots of games when Chris Paul wasn't here. But you touched on this. James Harden has won an MVP, and he's finished second 4 of the last 5 years. How do you say, James, you need to change the way you play when you receive that? He got this Supermax contract, Skip, playing that way. He became James Harden, a household name, playing this way.
Well, he finished second in MVP voting and first with the players under Kevin McHale.
Right.
In 2015. I voted for him that year in 2015. He averaged 29, but he didn't, he didn't dominate like this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, we didn't see the dribble, step back, dribble, layup, dribble, floater. But that's what that's what he is. I don't know what Chris Paul was thinking. I guess Chris Paul looked at it and says, well, hold on. The past couple of years, he's been 4th in usage. And now I get here, he's 1st in usage. And it's increasing. So not only is he not willing to pass the ball to me, he's just keeping it from himself even more. Because I could probably tolerate, I can stomach you being 4th in usage rate. He's at 41%. Russell Westbrook, who we think was a ball hog, is at 33.
Second.
That's 8 more percent. That's unheard of.
And by the way, Chris Paul tied for 55th with Buddy Hield.
He did. And Chris Paul says, hold on, I'm used to having the ball.
Right.
At least some.
Yep.
They relegated Chris Paul to, Chris Paul, now he goes out. He's he's the leader of the second unit. Because James Harden starts the first quarter, plays all the first. Chris Paul goes out with about 4 minutes left in the first quarter, comes back in with the second unit, run the second unit, and start the second quarter, Skip. Skip, this is not going to work. But I just don't know how you move $41.3 million over the next 3 years. I just don't know how. I know James Harden says him or me, but I just don't know how you move Chris Paul.
I don't either. I've read 20 trade scenarios, and the best one I saw was Hassan Whiteside and Goran Dragic to Houston for Capella and Chris Paul. But why would Pat Riley want to be saddled with that Chris Paul contract? Do you think you could win with Chris Paul next year in place of Goran Dragic? No, you couldn't.
And you got that would mean you'd have 2 more years at 41 and 44 million on Chris Paul, and then you got 2 more years of Clint Capella at about 18 million. So why would I do that? Hassan Whiteside is up after this year. So is Dragic. So why would I take on 2 more years of big salary, Skip, and no.
Chris has played 58 games each of the last 2 seasons.
Okay.
And he's just, I said it last year. Houston was hesitant to give him that contract, but there was that wink, wink, handshake, whatever, when he forced his way out of the Clippers. And here's the thing about Chris. New Orleans, he forced his way out. The Clippers, he forced his way out. Now, I've been told this is not true. Daryl Morey denies it. But if it's true that he wants out, that's 3 teams now that he's forcing his way out.
And he's always feuded with somebody, maybe not at New Orleans because he was the star in New Orleans, but he and Blake could never quite get along, and it just blew up. And I got to tell you, I have lost so much respect for Chris Paul's game that you said you can't win with a one-man show, but their one-man show is better than the two-man show I saw last year featuring Chris Paul as the second star.
Right.
I would rather see Austin Rivers in the starting lineup in place of Chris Paul. They would be a better team with Austin because he doesn't have a big ego. He just does whatever works, like he'll defend, he'll fight, he'll scrap. And if he gets an open look, an open three, Austin will make a bunch of those.
He made some big shots against the Warriors.
I'm just saying that they look like a better team with him in that spot as opposed to Chris, who still sees himself as a superstar, making superstar money. And he can't, first of all, he doesn't fit. And he also can't live up because he's lost a step. He doesn't keep himself in the best of shape, it looks like to me. That's just my eye. I could be wrong about that. They always say he practices hard, but I don't see him. He doesn't do the LeBron thing. He doesn't have the fitness regimen.
No, that takes place in the offseason.
Outside of John Stockton, most guys his size break down about this point in their career. But I don't think they can. Look, one-man shows, they're not going to consistently win a championship, if at all. Wilt Chamberlain was the greatest one-man show of all time.
He was.
And when he won his championship, he averaged 24 points a game one year, which was his lowest to that point, I think his 7th year. And he averaged 14 when he won it with the Lakers.
Yep.
I think LeBron,
18
I think one reason LeBron's hasn't won more titles, he's a one-man show to a large degree. Now, he's a passer, but he's creating everything. He's creating for everybody on the team, rather than kind of fitting in with the scissors. And Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson convinced them this triangle is how we're going to do it. And that's when they started winning championships. So if those 3 couldn't win it as a one-man show, then how's James Harden going to do it?
I would look, Skip, if I was the general manager, Chris, this is how I would look at it. I would treat it, free agency and signing players, like a house. If you buy a house, what's the first thing you need to think? Resale. If I buy a $300 million house, Skip, there's only 5 people in the world that can afford that. You sign Chris Paul to this deal. What if I got to trade him? Who going to be able to take that on? Nobody. So now I'm stuck with it.
Yeah.
They're stuck. I don't know.
So you have to use him, right?
James Harden, now, Daryl Morey said the other day, there is tension. Tension is good. Now he's trying to downplay it.
Right.
Because
he's saying they're talking, all 3 of them, about free agents. You have to use Chris Paul. If you can't trade him, what's the point of having him average 12 points off the bench? Right?
James Harden gonna lump him up. You got to get him up out of there. I mean, you heard the story, man. James Harden is shooting on one end of the court by himself because he likes to do that after practice. Chris Paul gets a rookie, and they go play one-on-one on the same basket that James Harden is shooting on.
I know.
You know how practice gyms are for NBA team. They got like 10 goals. And you find the one that James Harden is shooting on. Come on, Chris.
I just don't know what you do with it. If you can't trade him,
Petty Paul,
you got to try to make it work.
Good luck with that. Good luck. Hold on. Look, once you get to this point, you married. Your wife can't constantly argue and say, I want out. It's like, we're going to make it work. You going to stay here.
My father's there, and they're happily married 54 years, but they had a motto, suffer through. Suffer through.
I ain't gonna do that. No, I don't. Jesus was the greatest sufferer. I'm not him. I'm not suffering through nothing. I'm gone. I'm up out of here, Skip.
But here's the thing. Why are the Rockets panicking? You've lost to Golden State. That's the one team. They may very well have been the second best team in the league last year or this past year, for all we know. Why panic? And like you said, Golden State is done for a year. It's right there for the taking.
No, they.
Well, no, the Lakers are there.
23 and 23.5.
It's still, you have a shot. You have a shot.
I got to tell you, last year, I've never been the biggest James Harden fan, but last year was revolutionary. I've never seen anything like it before. Ever. It was as revolutionary as Steph's second MVP year when he dominated from the three-point line in ways we'd never seen
Made
before.
over 400.
Right?
Yeah, you just couldn't stop it. he was shooting them from 40 feet. He was shooting them like they were free throws.
Yes.
Well, last year, it got to the point where this one man was just truly unstoppable.
Right.
He could stop himself if he had a cold shooting night, but mostly he didn't have cold shooting nights.
But even if he had a cold
Okay.
shooting night, he's going to get to the free throw line, skip, and make
does.
20 or 22.
But here's the thing. He could do that again this season.
Yeah.
But what about the playoffs? He can't do that in the playoffs. It's too easy over a 7-game series with days off in between games to zero in on exactly what he does.
Okay, I've never loved him in the biggest playoff moments because he's had a long, awful history, like an ugly history. But to Shannon's point that he made earlier in the show, how are we to know how much the Chris Paul versus James undercut their ability to close the deal against Golden State after Kevin Durant went out? Are they at each other's throats to the point that it's just too distracting for the whole basketball
Because
team?
it was reported, Skip, they were getting into a heated discussion after Game 6, walking up the court, walking in the tunnel.
Yeah. Well, do you think your LeBron would take him?
No.
If I'm Daryl Morey, I'm calling the Lakers. I'm calling Pelinka.
But you know
Hey,
what?
let's put him with LeBron. Actually, I'm calling LeBron.
Well,
You
LeBron
want
would
your guy.
take him, but at what price? I mean,
No.
Well,
how do
the
you-
price
how do you
is max money.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think he would take it. He's smart. He knows.
They only got $32 million. Chris Paul's making $41 million. How you fit that?
That banana boat would sink, right?
But the thing is, you know what, Chris? You could stomach this if they were winning title. Dr. Bus stomach Shaq and Kobe being at each other because they were three-peating. And then all of a sudden, they didn't three-peat. It was like, this is enough. But then they lost respect for each other. How much respect do these guys have for one another?
You